Michelle's one of my favorite intramarket analysts and traders, so I'm curious as to her year-end look. Okay.
Dale, can you hear me?
Got you, Michelle. How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you. How are you?
Doing okay. Looking to wrap up 2020. How about you? You ready to say goodbye?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes and no. I mean, I have to tell you, obviously, it's been really, really hard to live life in the COVID world as far as our social life and not seeing my family, not doing the things we love to do, simple things like going to a movie.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, business-wise, it's been an incredible year.
Yeah. I mean, you've been on top of this commodity trade for about a year now, talking about silver and sugar and having fought the tape with stock indexes, and curious what in this COVID era, what your family, your just not your personal family, but the family of intermarket relationships is saying going into year end. So if you could share your screen.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you if you wanted me to do that.
Yeah, it's that green box.
Right, got it. Okay, so you should see it's a chart of Microsoft because I wanted to show this because to start, and I'll get to the family only because I've one of the things that happened to me this year, which has been really wonderful, has been I hired a publicist who has really helped me get booked on a lot of different stations, including Fox Business, which I'm on again today with Charles Payne, Making Money with Charles Payne. So that's been exciting because I've had an opportunity to say things that are not what everybody else says.
Right.
Which is so typical of me, right? So you've known me for years.
Yeah.
And people don't know things like a relationship between a family when you go out there into the media. And they don't understand some of the aspects of being a floor trader. And so this is what we're going to explore with the Modern Family. But I wanted to start with this because I thought this was such a great example. I've been saying that stocks like Microsoft, Amazon, and Nvidia, and probably at some point Google, although that's certainly not been set up yet, in Facebook. But right now, those three have not been where one should put the money. And if anything, if the market corrects in particular, obviously, if the market continues to go up, I wouldn't short them. But if the market corrects, these would be the places that I would go. And these people have been looking at me like I have two heads because, what? Microsoft, these are going to go flying. And I've been trying to explain to them that the big tech is not necessarily going to go down, obviously, when the market's going up. But if you look down below here, what you're seeing is a momentum indicator. And the momentum has been so negative. This is a 50-day moving average. This is a 200-day moving average. And Microsoft was really low down here while the market was going to new highs. It's popped up a little bit here up to the 50-day moving average with the move that we had yesterday. But if you think about the market on new all-time highs, and that something like Microsoft is not even where it was just a couple of weeks ago.
Or even September 2nd or August 30th was a high for many of those FANGs.
And exactly. Right. And it's not so different here for Nvidia. In fact, Nvidia is not even it's not even above the 50-day moving average. And Amazon, which also popped yesterday, still hasn't gotten to its 50-day, even though it cleared it. So essentially, what I'm really introducing you to here today is something we haven't discussed before, something that we knew from the floor because we could feel it. But what we but you can't see on a price chart is momentum. It's invisible. When we traded on the floor, of course, as you know, you could see the order flow starting to wane. You could see the enthusiasm of the particular brokers waning. You could see the velocity waning. You can't see that on a price chart. You could see sideways action or whatever, but you can't tell if there's a momentum shift. And so this is really something that we have put together with this indicator called Real Motion. And it's available on stock charts. We have it too. And I'm not trying to sell it or anything. I'm just saying it's really been an incredible guide to add this to our family. So if we go now to the family, let's start with IWM.
What are the dots, Michele?
Those are Bollinger Bands.
Okay, but the red dots, if that's the color, just a little.
Oh, that's just showing where the momentum is in terms of the
Okay.
yeah, right. So that's the momentum. And then you have, like I said, you had the 50, the 200. This is the zero line here. Obviously, if things are below, then they're negative. And then you have these Bollinger Bands in here. So let's start with IWM. Now, IWM, obviously, you could see how perfect it was when it broke the 50 right at the end of October. It broke the 50 in the momentum, but the momentum immediately held. What we look for is not so much when they're in line, momentum and price, but when there's a divergence. And so this is something people keep asking me, are we near the top? Are we near the top? It's got to be the top, got to be the top. And so this is something to watch out for. Look what happened yesterday. Even though it made a new high, the momentum came off a little bit, right? Now, I'm not saying that in and of itself is negative, because it would have to show me more. Like we'd have to have some type of price confirmation. But considering
there might be a reason to get out of longs, though. What do you think?
Well, I would say
short.
I wouldn't get short, not yet. Although I know people are chomping at the bit to do that. They are. Everybody wants to pick the top. They want to be the one to say, I picked the top. And that is just silliness. Essentially, what you really want to do now is, I'd say, we're coming to the end of the year. Take it easy. My God, if you haven't made money since March, April, you're not going to make your money in these next 2 weeks of December. Go take a break and think about what you want to do and where you want to be for the 2021.
Great advice. Great advice. It's kind of like people, I say, don't try and make your week on Friday. So don't try and make your year the last couple of weeks of the year when liquidity is low.
And the market is extremely overbought. And the exuberance is irrational. And as we can see here, what's been leading the market up, which is the Russell 2000, incy-bincy little bit of slowdown in the momentum. Now, today it's coming in higher. It's gapping higher, actually. So we may see that flip right up. But at this point now, we have some resistance here that's going to follow along the Bollinger Band. So again, not negative. I don't want people to say, oh, Mish is bearish. I'm not. What I'm saying is that we're getting now maybe a little bit tired on the upside, but there are other things that we could look at, and I want to show you. So let's also look at Granny Retail. So this is the wife of Grandpa Russell. And of course, the great thing about this year is that the Modern Family has really outperformed and has done what they hadn't done in years, which is outperform tech and NASDAQ. So we love that, because that really reflects the optimism in the economy, which is completely the opposite of what the Fed was saying yesterday, which is they're not very optimistic about the economy, at least not through the first half of 2021. And of course, we're seeing that K-shaped recovery, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're seeing here with retail, and this is now, well, hard to tell the bid offer here before the market opens, 61.63 at 63 bid, is what's going to happen here. The high up here is at 62.75. So it looks like it might come in above that. It might not. And again, the momentum followed along here and coming down and popped up a little bit. But if we cannot clear these highs of this momentum right here, and the price starts to come off, again, a signal, not bearish, but don't chase, right? Here's the one that I'm really most concerned about, and this is transportation. I have, in my many years of trading, have seen transportation as one of the greatest beacons. And there's fundamental reasons for that. Transportation really is the demand side of the US economy. Obviously, Charles Dow figured that out in the 1800s. And so hence he came up with the Dow index, transportation index. And so I have never stopped following it. Now I use IYT. Some people use other ETFs or what have you. But for me, I've always found this to be really reliable. I can't tell you how many times IYT has shown me a top before anything else and has shown me a bottom before anything else. I mean,
what's average lag time between the rest of the market picking up on what the transports are saying?
It could be anywhere from a day to about a week and a half. right?
Okay.
So there you go. That's why, let's see where December plays out. I mean, to me, that's how I'm looking at it. So now look what happened. You had this big candle down a couple of days ago. And since then, we really haven't done very much to impress. Now, again, talk about a bid offer spread here, 217.86 bid at 227.24. We don't know. And obviously, if it can take out this high of 228, it's off to the races. But come down here again with the momentum. We're sitting right above that 50-day moving average. If this breaks the momentum to the downside, you wait for the price confirmation for it to break to the downside on the 50. But more importantly, forget about the trader mindset. Just more importantly, what it says about the market is, yes, this could once again be the beacon that things are starting to roll over.
Can I ask a question about your market gauge? Is it possible for the transport to make a new price high without your dots, without them making a new high?
Absolutely.
And have divergence between those two?
That's a really good question. And there are many, many examples of that. In fact, we see an example right here. Okay, so you see the momentum
so
on
it's already happening.
So there you go. We had a new high and a new high in momentum. Then we had another new high, and look where the momentum was. It never quite got as high as that first one over here. So yes, it's showing you that the rally, at least in the transportation sector, is getting tired. Now, there's again fundamental reasons for that. Partly is seasonal. Obviously, maybe people are not spending as much money, but more importantly, there's also another factor, and that is that we have a situation now where Amazon and a lot of the stores are saying, don't expect your delivery on time. We're so backed up. So there hasn't really been a good delivery time with FedEx and UPS because they're backed up. So it could be a good thing, and we're seeing a momentary lag, but it could also be something else. We don't know. This is
consumers spending slowing. I think that was the number yesterday.
Yesterday, retail sales. And by the way, the jobless claims came out this morning, higher, 3-month high.
Yeah.
So, people, the other question I get all the time is, well, tell me about the disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as big a disconnect in one way, and that is somebody like my sister who has a good job, has had the same job for 30 years. She has her 401k at record highs.
Yeah.
So people say the disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street, but a lot of people on Main Street have seen nice returns on their 401ks this year. So there's a disconnect, but not really. And so the biggest disconnect, of course, is for the people who don't have 401s and the people who are really impoverished. Yeah, and that disconnect has been going on.
No real estate, no equities.
Exactly. And that
just sliding down the ladder of the K, the lower part of the K.
And is that anything new? Not really.
No.
Yeah.
If I
had one thing that I could do in my life, that what I'd want to do is try to show people that you can make money in the market even with a very little investment. Especially now, they make it easier and easier with 0% commissions, fractal ownership, micro minis, things like that, because that's how I got started. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. So now let's take a look at a couple of the other sectors. So IBB, Biotech, obviously big news this year with all the vaccines. So what we're happening here now, again, momentum. If you look at the momentum at this peak here, the momentum was higher with this peak here. I mean, the moment higher then than it is now, right? Lower now than this peak here, starting to break down under the Bollinger Band. Now, again, today we'll see whether or not this rally sustains and what happens with momentum. That's why I'm not recommending anything to buy more or to start going short. We're going to look at the outliers, but let's go through the whole family while we're at it. So this is regional banks. Now, regional banks is actually at a momentum high.
Yeah.
So this, interestingly enough, could be the opportunity. So what do they want? They want yields to be higher. But right now, yields, which were higher, what's interesting, and we're going to get to this, is one of my clear warning signs is the TLTs, is the long bonds. And right now, today, as we're speaking, TLTs are actually up with the market up. So that
Isn't there a
means
big commitment of traders position? I think commercials have their biggest long in bonds in many years, or there's record shorts by specs. But yeah, so you think that TLT and bonds could rally, and that might imply some risk off down the road.
absolutely. It's
Got
one of
it.
the key things I'm watching. I'm watching 4 things, which we're going to talk about after we go through the whole family. So if that happens, interestingly enough, that could be good for the regional banks and the big bank sector. This is nowhere near all-time highs like we've seen in the other members of the family, but it's had this huge amount of consolidation over the last few weeks. So that could be an opportunity. Now, obviously, if the whole market goes down, everything probably goes down. But this could be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. And then finally in the family is, of course, the semiconductors. And the same situation that we saw before is that when it made a peak high here, we had peak momentum, and that's a good thing. Now that the price has come off, the momentum has come off. What we want to see now, here's what happens with this a higher open we're getting at 218, still not taking out the high, which is 221.79, but let's keep an eye on this. So that's where we're at. We're at, except for regional banks, we're at a very interesting point where the price and the momentum are starting to diverge. What does it mean? We don't know yet. We don't know. TLTs.
Good to be aware of, though.
It's definitely okay. Now, TLTs have had a negative momentum. They have.
Right.
They were positive, but when I started looking at them was here when it was holding this Bollinger Band, and you're seeing there's some support here on the Bollinger Band. And now with this move up, take a look where the 50 is. I'm looking for a move and hold over 159, and to see the Bollinger and to see the momentum start to creep up back over the 50-day moving average, which it hasn't been over since July. So if you see a shift here, not just in momentum, but also in price confirming the momentum, I think that spells a little trouble.
Yeah.
And need I remind you,
at least maybe to the green line, and then if it gets through there, could attack the double top.
Well, let's take a look here what happened when everybody was going nuts to the downside. This already showed, well, it didn't show a divergence here because you see here momentum was under the 50 and price was kind of up and down, up and down. Soon as this broke the 50, this is when this party got started. When it broke the 200 is when we had the huge spike. And look, you had the spike in momentum right at the high. The next day, the momentum really took a big drop, and you knew sort of the bond move was over at that point. Now, of course, this was extreme volatility. So let's also take a look at my other 3 indicators here. So this is LQD. This is the high grade bonds, right? Yeah. This has been the Fed's playground. They've been buying high yield corporate bonds since the swoon.
Okay.
And again, another good indication, because if this starts to wane, right now still strong bullish phase, not as high as it was up here in July, August, but nonetheless, and the momentum, I'm not seeing any major divergence at this point, other than it broke the 50 here briefly when it sold off, didn't exactly sell off here yet. But I'd be keeping my eye here as we're going into 2021. What's going to happen with the with the high grade bonds? Is the Fed going to continue to play here? There was a huge amount of liquidation in this earlier in the week, and now you can see they're still holding. If this picture changes, that would give me a message. If we look at the other total risk on, which is junk bonds,
they look better.
They look better, except
and the
that
Fed's not in the junk bond market, are they?
I think they are through BlackRock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. I don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But nonetheless, it is a Fed playground to me, because this is the ultimate risk on. And right now, again, we have consolidation. It's coming in a little bit higher again. The momentum started to wane, but we just had peak momentum with peak price. So nothing here. Exactly. And then finally, of course, what we have to look at is volatility.
Okay.
Now, there's a rule of thumb with volatility. Under 20, bullish for stocks. Over 30, bearish for stocks. What's interesting about the volatility is on these new highs, we have not taken out anywhere near the low lows that we had in 2019, and not even taken out the low lows that we had more recently in the end of November, beginning of December. So that's interesting. Already we're seeing a little bit of a divergence in the price, and people are watching this, obviously. Momentum is not great, but again, you want to see what happens if this starts right now, if it holds 20 and starts to move up over the 50, or we start to see the momentum increase, then it's another sign. So what's the moral of this story?
You asking me?
Oh, I'm asking you or myself.
Yeah, are you asking us? The moral of the story is that there's a lot of things where momentum is not confirming price. Bonds might surprise people because most people are looking for higher yields now. They weren't 4 months ago, Michele, but they are now. And curious what this will mean for commodities, and maybe we could wrap with that if you want to talk about sugar or silver, or a lot more people jumping on the bandwagon that you talked about a year ago about the undervaluation of commodities and metals, and now it's become kind of popular. So
Yeah, isn't that funny?
What's that telling you? Is it
Popular,
too
yes, but
popular?
well, no, because I was
Okay.
on Yahoo Finance last week, and this week I was on Asia First. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because both anchors, when I mentioned about food commodities, wheat,
Yeah.
sugar, corn,
Yeah.
and then some of the softs, they were like, "We haven't heard that before," and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that it may be popular amongst our little circle of of
Good point.
sophisticated traders, but it is not out there in the public. No way. Right
Okay.
now all the public can talk about is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin
Yeah.
stole a lot, which we're long, thank God, but Bitcoin stole a lot of the thunder of gold and silver this year, because people were saying that's the inflation hedge. Forget about gold and silver, no longer an inflation hedge. And I'm like, ha. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's take a look at gold, since we're talking about it. It's been a bit of a heartbreaker here, but right now, let's start with the momentum. So we peaked low on the momentum. There was no divergence. It broke down under the 200. And now you can see the momentum obviously is picking up. And today on the open, we're going to cross over this 50-day moving average. You should have been buying it down here, actually, because you had this classic almost island bottom exhaustion gap here, and then the gap up above the 200. This would have been the day with a good risk down here. Now the risk is harder to ascertain. We want to see what the momentum does here. The momentum has not been above the 50-day moving average since August. Okay. So I don't mind being a little bit patient here if you're not already in it, because what this is saying is that it could get started. It could also be a fake breakout, which we saw here, right? We saw here. Right. We saw several times. We saw here, we saw here, we saw here. Yeah. Didn't quite happen here.
False breakdown too. You're having a lot of false breakouts, breakdowns in gold.
Right. So, I guess really to me, the takeaway of all of this is everything is shifting. And we need to give it time, and having a little patience is the perfect opportunity now, given that we're also coming into the holidays. We're going to have, basically a 4-day weekend next weekend, and then another 4-day weekend coming into the new year. By then, I think the picture will be clearer with gold, with the market, with all those outliers. Let's also take a look at oil. Why isn't this? I'm screen sharing, but for some reason this did not change. Oh, it changed on my screen. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Dale?
We're here.
Yeah, what's happened is that it changed on one screen. It changed on one screen, but it didn't change on what I'm sharing with you for some reason.
Okay, well, you could do a new share, or just, oil's been really acting well. So if you just want to,
I want to show you that.
Okay.
All right. So let me. I'll tell you from. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, guys. I can't show it to you. Okay. But if I could show it to you, what you would see is the oil is also up. I would love to be able to show this to you.
There it is.
Oh, great. Oh, good. I'm so happy.
Delayed fuse. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The reason why, look at the momentum here.
Wow.
Yeah, the momentum was going up while the price was flatlining. It never broke the 50, even though the price did. This was giving you a buy signal long. This is what I'm saying. This was giving you a buy signal long before. Now we're seeing the price confirm. And look at the momentum now. The momentum is starting to really accelerate. This has been the missing link for people in terms of really believing the inflation scenario,
Yeah,
goes against what
been.
everybody, heavily short, goes against what everybody thinks in terms of the future of the oil market here. And so this is another thing to be watching as we're going into 2021 is, why is oil going up? And what does that mean for all the other commodities?
Stagflation.
Yes. Well, right now, exactly, but the market's not stagnating, so we can't call it stagflation yet.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, you have me prepped for next year, and great presentation once again. Congratulations on all the coverage you're getting. That means that you're reaching people with and providing clarity, because that's what you do. You provide clarity in the markets where most people see confusion. Michele, she sees reasons and has indicators and experience, most of all, to be, so you could be in tune with what's happening. So, Michele, the best way for people to follow you or participate with you,
well, there's a
go to
few
your
ways.
website.
Website, marketgauge.com. Subscribe to
Okay.
our free daily blog, which is Mish's Market Minute Daily. I'm now working with my apprentice, I guess I can call him, assistant Forrest. Christ is helping me write it, and he's learning, which has been great for me and for everybody else because he's got a different perspective. Also, Twitter at Market Minute is a great way to talk to me. I'm very active on Twitter, and I'm very, very engaged with people. If you ask me a question, I will actually answer it.
Well, thank you so much for being here before the holidays, Michele. Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. I hope that you have a great 2021 as good or even better than 2020 was for you, and appreciate you coming in here and edifying our community. So thanks again, my trading warrior sister.
Thank you, Dale. I wish you
Right.
too happy holidays, a healthy and prosperous new year to you and to all your listeners. Thank you again for having me on.
You're the best, Michele. All right, that's a wrap, everyone. Remember, don't just count your indexes and your coins, count your blessings, and we'll wrap the week tomorrow. Adios. Thanks, Michele.
Thank you.